So yeah, I'm Cody. I'm 19. I'm a student nurse, but I live with a chronic illness. I have a condition called Crohn's disease, which is an autoimmune disease which affects your digestive system and causes inflammation in your bowels, can cause blockages, tears, and yeah, it has a lot of other things linked with it, like fatigue, I suffer with hair loss, again, pain, sickness.
Yeah, and for anyone who doesn't know, I'm Becca, I'm 19, I'm ill with chronic illness called ME, which stands for myalgic encephalomyelitis. And it's also known as chronic fatigue syndrome, so it causes fatigue, pain, muscle weakness, and a variety of other things. Where medical professionals say they are unable to help you.
The biggest eye roll you can ever think of. There's nothing more we can do, or we don't really know what to do next.
Yeah, or even sort of, I don't know about with you, but for me it was sort of like we didn't really know what caused it. There's not really that much known about it, so
I went 6 years misdiagnosed.
really,
when there was an actual diagnosis, it was a case of there's not actually a cure, and being told that there's not actually a cure was like, it was so scary, because it was like, them saying there's not a cure makes you think it's going to be exactly like this for the rest of my life. It's going to get better, or you can get into remission and there's just not a cure. You'll always have it, but you can be in remission. And you don't think that when there's not a cure. It's just like, obviously it's not nice having a chronic illness, but it's still part of you. You wouldn't be you without it.
Yeah, that's so true. And I think that's like another thing, because sometimes you get people that sort of tell you like, oh well, don't let it define you, don't let it be part of you. But it's like, but it is.
Yeah, true, it doesn't define you. Like, you can still live life with chronic illness. It's like, I thought from when I first got it, I was like, I'm never going to be able to dance again because of how much pain I'd be and how tired I'd be, and I'm not going to be able to dance, and I'm not going to be able to do this, I'm not going to be able to do that, but I'm not going to be able to work, I'm never going to get my dream job. And obviously living proof that you can live with a chronic illness and still do what you want to do.
Yeah. Like, you don't want the illness to like become like who you are, but it is still a part of it. So sort of finding the right balance. I think that's something that I sort of struggle with mentally as well, is when people sort of like downplay it because they don't understand it, then it's so frustrating, because it's like, I just want people to understand it, or at least sort of like appreciate how hard it is, but people just don't get it.
Yeah, it's one of them really, where you'd want them to understand it and you'd want them to experience it, but you're also sat there thinking, I'd never want anyone to have to go through it.
Yeah.
Try to play it down. Like, obviously everyone with illness will do it. You'll try and play it down, you'll act as if nothing's wrong for God knows how long. You try and put that front on, which puts a wall up, but that makes people think, oh well, she's all right then, she seems all right, when you can like pretend to be all right but not be.
So another one was the fear when your health is dipping and you don't know if it's temporary or not. Yeah, there is like a lot of fear around sort of going through like a bit of a crash. So like, if for people with ME, like when we're having a flare up, we tend to refer to it as a crash. It's sort of thinking, okay, but is this like just a crash that is going to last like a few days or a few weeks, or is this like the whole thing getting worse and not going to get better? So yeah, it's scary, and yeah, you get quite a lot of fear.
If I'm in a flare, it's more of a considering, am I in a flare because I'm inflamed, or have I got a bowel perforation, have I got a blockage, am I going to need emergency surgery, is this it? Because if there's a chance that I could go into a flare up and it be a bowel perforation or a bowel blockage or a twist in my bowel, and if it's any of them things and it is severe and they can't treat it with antibiotics or steroid medication, you could end up having surgery to have part of your bowel removed. It's one of them, you can't ever judge the symptoms. You have to like take it all as okay, this could be the worst case scenario, or am I going to go in and they're going to give me some steroids and I'll be out of hospital the next day. And I judged that wrong the last time, and it was a blockage, and I was in for 6 days. I feel like if I'm going in a flare-up, I'm spending more time keeping everyone else around me calm than I am myself.
I'm the exact same. Like, yeah, if I'm really struggling, like if I'm in a lot of pain, someone will be sort of looking really worried and stuff, and so I'm there like in loads of pain, but just saying, it's fine, I'm going to be okay. It's just,
just breathe. I'm like calming them down, and I'm like, I'm literally in so much pain, but you're screaming your head off, panicking. I'm like, I'm fine. Just fine.
And like when other people are sort of panicking, it makes you panic more. It's just like, it's just sort of a bit of like a vicious circle, really, isn't it? Because it's like they're panicking, which making you panic, which then probably makes them panic even more. And then it's like,
for me, stress is a big one for a flare. So if people around me I'm stressed, I'm like, oh, I can't get stressed, because if I get stressed, I get ill. Or I stress more because I'm ill.
Yeah.
So it's like, I feel like I have to live in a Buddhist world of Zen.
Being stressed and being worried is so exhausting that it then sort of makes all my symptoms worse. But then I'm stressing more because my symptoms bad, and it's like
food. So if like we're going out somewhere to eat that I haven't eaten before, and I'm reading the menu and I'm like, I haven't tried that before, but if I eat it, is it going to mix with something that's going to make me ill? And I have such a fear over foods that I always go for the safer option on the menu. I'm like, I'll have that.
I feel like that's sort of what I do. Just sort of like day-to-day activities. Like, for example, yesterday I was going to go out for a drive with my sister. It was only like the second time that I've been out in a car in like a year and a half. So we were going to go in the car, and it was sort of like, do we do the drive, which I've already done once, so I know I'll be okay, or do we try and go a bit further? And it's sort of like sort of the fear of, if we go a bit further, is it going to have a really bad knock-on effect? It's like sometimes you do just have to try things. If you don't try it, then you won't know. But it's sort of like getting that balance between trying things but also not like taking loads of risks that are gonna, which are gonna like cause you to have a flare up or get worse and stuff. So you sort of have to get like the balance between looking after yourself physically and looking after your health, but then also looking after like your mental health and doing things that you enjoy, which may or may not have a negative impact on your physical health. If you know they're going to have like a positive impact on your mental health because it's something that you enjoy, then it's sort of like judging that.
That's me with dancing. So I always found that a lot of the time before I started back at dance, I was ill more, but I also didn't want to go back to dance because I didn't want the stress of being like, oh, I need to remember this, do I need to remember that, have I got this, have I got that, and having the stress of that making me more ill. But I took that challenge and went, I'm going to start back, and I'll just start like a class a week and just see how it goes. And that was like over a year ago, and I've not looked back since. I've actually felt that I'll use that as a big stress relief, and I'll flare less because I'm dancing, because it's my way of releasing my stress.
Sometimes
you have to take the risk. I do 3 a week now.
Okay.
Like if I'd have threw myself in that at the start, I'd have been like, oh my god, I've done 3 classes this week, I am not going to cope for the next month. But I went from 1 to 2 and then to 3. So it was a gradual incline. It was like, I can do it now.
That's a really good example. So when you were in school, did you struggle with like teachers at school being understanding?
A lot. That was one of my biggest things. But they were always just like, oh, you're fine, just get on with it, just, you're all right. And then like, so if there was incidents where I'd be in that much pain, I'd pass out, and they'd just be like, get up, you're fine, or just stand up, or we'll take you down to medical. Or my teachers had this thing of, if you pass out, it's because you haven't eaten, and they'll throw a sandwich at you. And I'm like, it's not actually because of that. But it was just one of them. It was lack of understanding and lack of knowledge of it. So they were just like, obviously it's no fault of theirs. They were just going with what they know.
When I was in year 12, doing like first year of A-levels, that was when sort of my ME definitely began to decline and begin to get quite a bit worse, and I was missing quite a few of my lessons because of it. Or like I would go into a lesson, but then after like 10 minutes be like, no, I can't sit here, like I'm too exhausted. And then I would sort of have to like leave lessons, or I wouldn't go to lessons, and I'd have teachers saying, oh well, it's just because you don't like the subject. And it's like, but it's my A-levels, I've chosen these subjects, of course I like it. Was when you're in a lot of pain or have a lot of symptoms and emotionally it wears you down. So I find myself getting very frustrated at my body, like so much of the time. Like if I'm in a lot of pain or I'm really worn out, and I'm just like, why do I feel like this? And it's sort of like you want to cry, but you're too tired. Like,
it makes you feel weak as well. Like, not just weak as in, oh, my body's weak. It makes you feel mentally weak because you're like, I find myself a lot of the time, I'm so guilty of this. Every time I'm in a flare up, the one thing I'll always say is, I can't do this anymore.
mm-hmm.
And it just makes you feel like I'm not strong enough to fight through. You always do end up coming out the other side, like, look at me, I'm still here.
Mm.
But it's just in that moment, in that time, you're like, it's happening again.
Yeah.
Like, I can't do it anymore.
I feel like there's quite a lot of pressure on people who have chronic illnesses to be strong and be positive, like, all the time. And it's like, actually, it's okay not to be.
Yeah, you've got to be strong at the end of the day. Like, you have to have strength. Anyone with chronic illness has strength. I don't care what anyone says, they do.
Mm-hmm.
But then there's also, it's also okay not to be okay.
Yeah.
You're all right to have a few days where, not even just a few days, have a month, have like a year, do whatever you need to do, but it's okay to not be all right with it.
Yeah, and like sometimes I'll find that, like, I'll be really struggling with stuff, and I'll like sort of like be really honest with my friend or something and say I'm really struggling, and they go, oh, but you're so strong and you're so positive. And it's like, if someone is really struggling, just say you are really strong, but you don't have to be strong like right now.
Yes, I am strong, but at this current minute I'm not,
mm-hmm.
because I don't need to be. So,
yeah,
obviously being diagnosed with any illness, whether it's chronic, whether it's not chronic, whether it's just anything, being diagnosed with anything, it's hard.
mm-hmm.
And like I was very in denial when I was diagnosed. It was like, no, like, I don't have this, or I do. Obviously I knew I did, but it was almost as if I didn't speak about it, it wasn't real.
Mm-hmm.
And but then you come to a part when you're like, no matter what, it's still there. And if you feel like this, someone else has got to feel like it as well.
Mm-hmm.
And it was when someone I look up to quite highly came out of the fact that they had it, and I was just like, what? And it made you realise that if they can do it, why can't I? And it doesn't define, again what we said earlier, it doesn't define you, but it does at the same time.
Yeah.
And it's like, but if I'm struggling to come to terms with it, and I don't understand it myself, there's got to be other people out there that are also feeling the same.
Yeah.
So by me coming to terms with it myself and speaking out about it, it might encourage other people to as well.
Yeah, because I've been ill 4 years. I definitely find that even like still now, I do struggle to fully accept it, and sometimes I'll just like try and forget about it, and then I'll go and do something and be like, oh yeah,
I can't do that.
necessarily do that, because and that's sort of like why I started my YouTube channel and why I wanted to do this series, is because I thought, like, there's so many people who are going to be feeling like they can't accept it, that they're never going to be able to do anything, sort of everything that we sort of talked about in this video, but then they might watch this and think, oh, they're going through the same thing. And like with you're now a student nurse and you're managing to like go to dance with 3 times a week and stuff. Yep. And I think that it just sort of gives people a bit of reassurance.
Yeah.
Has chronic illness changed your outlook on life?
Makes you more grateful.
Absolutely.
Makes you more grateful to be alive, because I've seen people that suffer with the same illness as me be in a much worse situation. Mm-hmm. I want to do everything I want to do, because there's people out there that can't.
Yeah. I think it makes you appreciate like the simplest things. Because I basically didn't go outside at all for I think a year or so. I was bedbound, and then the first time that I went outside, it was like magical. Like that's because it's just like, it was just the simplest things, like feeling the wind like in your hair and on your face, and like seeing the sky and hearing like traffic and birds and everything. That's such like a thing that you just take for granted. You just don't take anything for granted.
There's a lot of people that live with Crohn's as well who have NG feeds. They're like the tubes that go from the nose into the stomach, or from the stomach directly in. Mm-hmm. And I think like if anyone ever has to experience that, but then gets rid of the tube, don't take for granted the little things like being able to eat, or being able to eat anything and not make you ill.
Yeah, for me, it's like, don't take for granted like the fact that you can walk. Yeah, I think definitely just sort of, you learn not to take anything for granted, and just to
appreciate what you've got.
Yeah, and just sort of live life to the best that you can.
Yeah, definitely. Don't let it control your life. Be grateful for what you've got and appreciate everyone, and realise that just because when you look at someone, just because they look okay, they might not be.
And yeah, as we said many times in this video, don't let illness define you, but do sort of accept it as part of who you are.
Definitely, yeah.
Cool. Well, thank you very much, Cody, for joining for this first episode.